concept was silly, ridiculous, a waste of time. They didn't want that's why they were so successful. That's why they got away.
Made a living in very dangerous.
This is really an integrated blue together.
Dianne Andrews in black and white.
Welcome to Dianne Andrews in Black and White, and I'm your host, Dianne Andrews. Thanks for joining us today, whether you're watching us in our 3 million television homes, or whether you're on one of our social media platforms, which you'll see up on your screen, or whether you're watching us on YouTube. We appreciate you watching us. I think today you will be very excited about the show we're going to do, because we're going to take you to Mars. Seriously, we have a young lady who I interviewed about 4 years ago who was on her way to Mars. She is now per Forbes magazine the youngest astronaut in training in America, or maybe the world. We can ask her that. But we appreciate what she's done. This is a lady who's done 3 TED Talks. She did her first one from Greece when she was 13 years old. She is a child prodigy, I like to say. I don't know if she'll say that herself. She's a very modest, beautiful young lady. When I interviewed her 3-4 years ago, she didn't even have a cell phone. But now she has a cell phone. She speaks multiple languages. She's majoring in Astro Biology, and she is going to be one of the first people who walks on Mars that leaves in 2033. And I think I remember from the first show, she told me it takes 3 years to get there. But with technology today, it may take longer. We'll find out in a few minutes. Next to her, we're going to be interviewing another lady who is a scientist and an engineer. And she works with youth to help them develop their dreams. In fact, that's what the first guest, third TED Talk was about. How to mature your dreams. First, let's talk about how to find dreams. Some people are living that they can't even find their dreams. So come on back and let's talk about going to Mars, and let's talk about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, which you may not know almost became SMET, SMET. Science, mathematics, engineering, and technology, but they said it sounded too crazy. So come on back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White, and let's see what these 2 women have to tell us that we can learn. Welcome back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White with our 2 guests. And I did mention my co-host is here today. He's been a little under the weather, but he's doing better. So thank you all for mentioning him in some of the Facebook. With me is Alyssa Carson. You may remember her when she was 16 and she's on the show. She's now 19 at Florida Tech. And next to her, we have Alisa Dunbar, who is the chemist and engineer who's been working in the plants, who also has her own organization that does STEM gyms, is what she's working with STEM kids, minorities and younger girls to help them with STEM dreams and to find their dreams. Let's start with you, Alyssa. Tell me about this great project you did in designing space luggage that they asked you from Berlin to come in, what is it, Horizon Travel or something was the name of them?
Yeah, the name of the company was Horizon 1, and basically the whole idea was being able to design some sort of space luggage. Obviously, some of the ideas for the future in space is looking at maybe having space tourism one day, and so as a luggage company, they were just thinking, you know, how could we have some sort of space luggage? You know, we wouldn't want the everyday public bringing, you know, any and everything from their house. You would want something that would be compatible with space travel. So that idea was really just trying to figure out something that would look futuristic, be important, you know, use all the right materials, and work well in a space environment.
And it cost a trip, this cost $56,000, the luggage, right? Right,
so right now the actual luggage would be just like a prototype, so that was like their estimate of cost. Of course, you know, that depends on what all they end up doing, but yeah, for right now it's just a prototype. prototype.
Well, if you can afford the one way, I don't know if it's round trip or one way, maybe you get there and you don't come back, but it's $400 and some thousand to the trip to Mars. Is that what it's estimated?
Ideally with like space tourism and things like that, for right now, really the only tourists that have really gone to space are the millionaires who have put up, a good chunk of money to be able to have that experience. Hopefully,
Elon Musk and people like that have done it.
The big idea is that eventually we could get to a point where space tourism would be a little bit more normal. Obviously, it would take time. Almost with any new technology, new product, it starts out pretty expensive, and then we would eventually get that down. But a trip to space probably will never be extremely cheap, like an airline ticket. Maybe one day, who knows? But for right now, it's probably going to be pretty pricey.
A lot of us may want to get off of this planet, and that's very smart for them trying to go to Mars. And you, 17 years ago, 18 years ago, right? Said, 18 years ago, I want to go to Mars, right? 16, 17 years ago. You were 3, so that's in your 19 now. So 16 years ago, you said, do you even remember saying that to your father after you saw this show?
I don't remember everything exactly. Obviously, my memories as a 3-year-old are pretty scarce, but I do remember a little bit about starting to gather like space materials, books about space and posters, and I remember starting to gather some of those, just things for me to study. And my dad remembers more about me coming and asking about Mars and space and things like that, and for the most part, I mainly just remember having an interest in space and wanting to kind of gather more information. I definitely have more memories of, for example, like space camp. And
you were 7 when he took you to, and you were hooked, it says, right? You were hooked, that's what he said. And your trajectory has been, and your father helping you get there. You've been to all the 9 space camps in the USA, is that correct?
Right, NASA? So I started by going to space camp just to learn more. I went to the other 2 major space camps, which was in Canada and Turkey. Visited the NASA visitor centers, and then since continued to start getting involved in more realistic research and doing experiments and campaigns, dealing with microgravity flights, working with the spacesuit company, doing much more. You just
talk like it's nothing. Microgravity and this, and explain to people what that, a lot of people in the audience may not even understand what that is.
Right, yeah, so for the majority of, the Project Possum, which is the citizen science group that I work with, which basically just means a whole bunch of everyday people coming and contributing to science in some way. We've done different sorts of research. A lot of it has to do with testing a type of spacesuit. So we have a spacesuit company, and we work a lot in testing that, so getting to wear the suit, swim in the suit, float in microgravity in the suit. But basically, to do microgravity, we have to go up in an airplane. And so we have a special aircraft that can do the maneuvers to actually pull up and kind of free fall, and at that time everything inside the plane free falls at the same rate, meaning that
how interesting
we're able to actually have microgravity or a sense of it for about 20 seconds each time.
And how did that feel to you? Did it feel like I'm just at home with this?
It definitely didn't feel at home.
I'm thinking maybe you'd been here before,
It was definitely pretty, it's just a very different experience. Your whole body just feels like lifted in a way, and there's just no coming down from that. There's no way to really force yourself down because you're just expecting.
At first, do you try to force yourself down?
When you first come up, you're waiting to come back to your seat like you normally would. Let's say on a roller coaster, you come up, you go back down. But there is no coming back down until the airplane pulls up again, and so
it can be scary at first. I'm sure.
Yeah, it's definitely just a really weird experience, and doing that over and over again, it's also very nauseating. Typically, a lot of people get sick doing those sorts of flights, so it's not the best on your stomach going up and down over and over again.
Before you leave, I'm going to ask you to stand up and explain this too, but let's move over to Alcy. Since you did the 3rd of your 4 TED Talks on dreams and challenging youth, and which you talked and motivated children all over the world since you were 13 years old, how are you challenging them? Then we'll talk to Alcy about her STEM GEMS organization. What do you tell kids about fulfilling and getting to your dreams? Because a lot of people live that they don't even have a dream. Their meal is, how do I go? Their dream is to let me have a nice meal tonight or next week. A lot of children, a lot of people around the world, as we're in this COVID, we're going more and more into poverty. 100 million people will go into poverty around the world from COVID. So what do you do to tell people that, how do you get a dream and maintain it as you have? And you had support Thank God. Yeah.
Right, for sure. And I think for the most part, I've tried to teach kids that some of these like impossible dreams, to not necessarily lose hope from them because they definitely can become a reality. When I was a little girl saying I wanted to be an astronaut and go to Mars, it was probably the most impossible thing I could have said. There weren't plans of going to Mars at that time. It wasn't something that was very tangible.
Right.
But the more I've worked towards it, the more of a reality it is becoming.
Right.
And so really just trying to help and guide kids in a way of maybe finding their dreams by maybe looking back at school, seeing what subjects they're interested in, having them maybe do some research about different jobs, and trying to help and guide them and getting at least started towards their path towards what their dream might be.
When she was 13, she was telling the kids what they need to do. And tell me what made you, being mostly in the chemical and engineering phase in your life, your almost 20-year career, what made you in 2014 say, I want to start STEM gyms and I want to help people understand the sciences? I'm, a math major. All three of us happen to be STEM women sitting here. And at the time when I majored in mathematics and undergrad in chemistry, it wasn't a lot of STEM women and we didn't have a name for it.
Yeah.
But it was more women, and you probably had a little more support maybe, but you knew there was support needed.
Yes.
Talk about that, Alisa.
Yes, when I did start the STEM Gems mentoring project, it was a conversation that took place between a friend of mine who was a principal at a primary school that I had attended in Ascension Parish. And so she had asked me to come over and to speak to the young ladies and just to, encourage them because at some point young girls do get to a point whether they're gifted or talented. They sometimes get into a space or a place where they're not as accepting of themselves because of what their peers
and even I have to bring up COVID again because I just wrote a book on COVID. Today will be my 15th show. I do another show on COVID, and I gloved up, I masked up, we sterilized the studio. And I never stopped doing shows. In February, I started working with the state epidemiologist on the first show on COVID because I knew people needed to know what was really going on. And I did one with a psychologist. I did 10 with doctors from infection control to other doctors, one a COVID survivor who will be in for another show today who just took the vaccine. So we'll see the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine. So, but today, how would you do that with it harder today? To get to people, we Zoom. Everybody, I did a show on teleeducation too. Everybody, especially minorities, don't have Wi-Fi or computers even in their home.
Exactly.
Have you thought about that, Alisa, and how will you get to them even more today?
Yes, and that's something that I'm currently assessing because the virtual option is not accessible to everyone, and not everyone can be captivated or motivated, just.
Well, we know suicides in under 21 has doubled in the last 4 months.
Yeah, because
it is a sad situation.
Yeah, I'm the type of person, I've always had to be in person, touch, feel. So
right.
That's just the type.
And I think most people are, especially your youth, and not just touch, feel, or hear the teacher. It's all the social activities, all the interconnections with your friends, all the sports is gone.
So that is a hurdle that needs to, we have to overcome.
First, I think we have to open up the schools because, again, I've done a lot of research. I've probably read 2,000 pages on COVID, and I was a geriatric home health agency I owned for many years. And I've done flu, Ebola, H1N1, everything, pneumonia. We still lose about 50 to 80,000 people with the flu with the vaccine, and it's been around since 1918 where we lost 100 million people. And Woodrow Wilson almost died from it, who was the president at that time. But when you look at the statistics, it's less, and for kids in school, it's less than the flu, the death rate.
Yes.
So there's a lot of politics, I think, have gotten involved in that too. Now, here in your parish, are schools open where you are for in-person learning?
They are. I'm not sure what the utilization rate is. I do know that there is the hybrid model that is being utilized. There are, in-person classes, and then there are students who decide to take the virtual option. But all in about, the main key factor or the thing that kind of threads everything together for the success for some kids is the support system.
Right.
And that's just something that some children don't have, which is why I, purposely decided to start.
It's a great
STEM Gems.
mission.
Yeah, STEM Gems in my hometown, at the primary school that I attended.
And you've got money, or not all money, but help and assistance from Google, from BASF, from Shell. You've gone out and you've gotten some assistance from major corporations. So they obviously see the need, and they know for the 21st century and beyond, we need people with STEM skills that can take them on into the future for the sciences and the engineering.
Yes, because whether we want to accept it or not, STEM is the future. It is now.
Right.
And most of the careers, as we are now beginning to see with the shift, the paradigm shift with COVID-19 and everything that's going on, especially with the artificial intelligence and technology, and where all of those new things are taking us in the horizons, we need to be more educated in STEM-based curriculums more than ever. You know?
And getting people more involved in it. I don't know if I ever told you, I started my career, I graduated at 19 and I went to work for IBM NASA. I was a computer programmer, similar language. I don't know if I mentioned that on the first show, but I worked at IBM and we did onboard space shuttle. Programming, and I can read a dump, but that's what I did at first with IBM until I moved on up with them and several other jobs. So I was a rarity, about 5 years ago. When I graduated at 19, I was a rarity back then.
A very special rarity. And I think with STEM, there are cases that are so unique and so rare, especially in Louisiana. I don't think that there is enough emphasis on it, because when I finished high school, I went to work in industry as soon as, the same week I graduated from high school as an engineering intern. So it's those.
How did you get that opportunity?
There was a scholarship opportunity at Inroads, the Inroads program. It's still around. But
I've heard of Inroads.
It was very, very popular and very prevalent. In the late 90s, early 2000s. And then there were the companies that, it was when oil and gas was just the bread and butter of the economy, and and it dictated, a lot of just the economy of global affairs.
Right.
And then, you had your big five accounting firms, KBMG, Deloitte, and Touche.
Right, but most of them are gone now.
All of them are gone. But when I started, it was companies like Texaco, Shell.
What do you think now? Because you've been in the oil and gas for a long time, and with what's going on now with the solar energy. I just did a show on that with an attorney and CPA and some other people, and we talked about the fact that we're number one. America is now in oil production in the world, which is good for us not to be dependent on Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
But windmill, we talked about windmill radiation on that show, and we also talked about when we become dependent on solar, we become dependent on China. The precious metals come from China. So, it just seems that there needs to be a balance on everything. Oil and gas is not all bad, solar is not all great, and windmill has many problems.
Yeah, and so I think that's a really big conversation piece that there needs some clarity around, because there's a big stigma with oil and gas.
And I don't understand it, and coal also. And even if we stop coal, China, which is 1.5 billion people, India also 1.4 billion people, they're half of the world, those two continents. And China just built 50 coal plants in China.
Yeah.
So we can go back to, I'm getting off into another show. I'll be with that guy later.
Yeah.
But I've done about 3 shows on that and a lot of investigation on that. So sometimes you look at what's real and what's not. Everything has a yin and a yang.
Yeah.
But we are number one in coal and gas and in coal. And there is coal that can be used that's not as bad as other coal. And I think because the CO2 emissions right now in America are the lowest they've been. And I think one of the lowest in the world, and we weren't in the Paris Accord.
Yeah, there's been a worldwide divestiture or an interest from oil and gas,
except China and India.
Except for China,
but that's half the world. Yeah, we can talk about Europe maybe, but hey, do they have any natural resources anyway?
Yeah,
what do they have? But it sounds like that you're on the right track to try to help get girls on where they need to be, and we know you're on the right track. We're going to take a short break and come back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. Please come on back and let's hear the rest of it. Let's see what's on this space jumpsuit that Alyssa has on. Come on back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. And I see my co-host is resting nicely. Welcome back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White, and we're still talking about Mars and how we can motivate some other women to be like us in this audience, you know, to get into the sciences, the technology, the engineering, the mathematics. Don't be afraid of it. That's what I always heard people say. Oh, even men, I'm afraid of math. I'm afraid, you know I can't do it. Well, if you already have a defeatist attitude, you'll never be able to do it. And neither one of you all did, and even I did. I didn't know I was supposed to be afraid of it. And I was always, you know, so good at it. So let's say you stand up and explain this when you wear this as an astronaut.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a flight suit, or that's what it's called. So typically, it wouldn't be something that you would like fly to space in or anything like that. They definitely have much better suits that have much more protection and resources. But basically, I've just collected patches from the different things I've done.
Yeah.
And now I have multiple flight suits from throughout the years of different stuff. But all, like I said, just different things. Space camp, space hipsters. You know, gotta make
space. Is there something on the back too?
Look cool. So there's actually nothing on the back. There's some on the sleeves. So like ISU is a university that I'm looking at potentially for my master's. But yeah, it just
is that an international university?
It is. It's actually over in Strasbourg, France.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's just different patches. Orion, one of the capsule that they're building for the mission to Mars. A patch about Mars, you know, just to represent different things that are going on in the space industry.
Tell the audience about Mars. Tell us, is it the closest of all the planets to America? Environmental issues is what people think? Or why is Mars chosen as the first?
So right now we're looking at going to Mars because, well, first of all, it's really the next planet closest to us that we can really go to. So with Earth, one side of us is Mars, the other side is Venus. Venus is very hot, pretty dangerous. There's a lot to tackle there. Mars is a bit better than going to Venus, but Mars is colder than Earth. So it's further from the sun, which kind of what makes it colder. It's slightly smaller than Earth, but as far as like land mass, it kind of ends up being about the same. And then the atmosphere is a lot thinner, so that's kind of the big challenge with Mars. So if you are on Mars, you're much more susceptible to, for example, like radiation, because you don't have as thick of an atmosphere protecting you. So the ultimate goals for the missions to Mars would be to have people go there, do a whole bunch of research, try to learn more about Mars, to see how realistic some of the plans of, you know, colonizing Mars or terraforming Mars or all these big plans of having Mars as possibly another place to live or colonizing it. It's going to be seeing how realistic that is with what's there, and also learning, you know, are there resources on Mars that could be helpful in any way? You know, in the water that's on Mars, is there any potential for there being bacterial life in that water that's there? So trying to just get a better understanding of it.
This shows you have no trepidations about this at all, but I understand to get your ears pierced a month or so ago, recently, you were afraid. That is amazing. That is, I mean, you talk about going to Mars and there's no trepidation, there's only excitement. And that is a wonderful thing that you've chosen something in your life that you knew when you were 3 years old you wanted to be, and you've gone for it and you worked hard, and your father, Bert, has helped you so much in accomplishing your mission to Mars. And that's what you're trying to instill in other young women and other minorities.
Yes.
What are your plans for next year, since we've mostly, you know, everybody's mostly locked down?
I plan to reactivate or, you know, do a reboot of the STEM Gems.
How many girls did you, minorities and girls did you have in the program the years past?
I've had about 800.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah.
The program. Alyssa was my STEM Gems ambassador for.
That's wonderful. She was a good one.
Yeah. I mean, the highlight of the year, or the most anticipated event, began to be when she would come and visit the young girls, and so like the last 2 years that we did have her come in and speak to them. I mean, the level of excitement and just the real life, realization. Oh my God,
She's going to Mars.
Yeah, we're meeting a real life
junior astronaut.
Astronaut. I mean, it just blew me away. You know, and it just helped to reinforce that you can do anything and anything
Do you
is
think
possible.
people, since it's been 6 years, do you think when you started, do you think that any of the women, because of what Alyssa said, or because of what you were doing and other people who came in to talk, that realized some of their dreams?
Oh, yes.
How? Because so many minority women, so many blacks, so many poor whites. Again, I talked about it there. A lot of people, kids, 20% go to bed homeless before the pandemic. I did a show on that, but now it's probably 25 to 30. How do you tell a kid? How do you recruit them? I guess that's number one. And what kind do you usually get?
Mainly, recruitment is normally done just by, I want to say, I'm not going to say word of mouth, but I do have
social media
pages. I have a Facebook page.
So they come to you,
yes,
pretty
they come
much.
to me.
Okay.
I do have a website, www.thestemgems.org.
Say it again. Spell it.
www.thegems.org.
Okay. So if anybody's interested out there and changing your trajectory or helping to get you on the trajectory that you're on, then that's the lady you need to call upon to help you do that.
And if you go to the website or if you go to the Facebook page, all of the information is there as to how you can get in touch with us. And
So tell me, are there other missions that you can go in that are not Mars? But where will you go? Where does this lead to besides just working to go to Mars, or just getting your master's from this international school?
Right, so I mean, the mission to Mars obviously isn't expected until, for example, like the 2030s.
Yeah.
That's still a ways away.
Yeah.
So for the most part, I am just going to be going through schooling. I'm working in the industry as well. The awesome thing about wanting to be an astronaut is that you have a career in whatever it is that you're interested in. So I would be working in Astro Biology. Obviously hopes to possibly do some sort of suborbital flight. So that would be, for example, just like going up past the line that kind of dignifies space, and then coming back.
How far is that demarcation line? Do you know?
Yeah, it's pretty on up there, about 100 kilometers. I'm pretty sure is about the line. So that's kind of what they consider to be kind of around that line. But yeah, so some sort of suborbital flights kind of go up, come back. But that would be pretty short. That usually those flights would be, a few hours. So like it would be all in a day's.
I hope when we get up there, COVID's not there.
I hope so too.
I have a book for you, one of my COVID books that I'm going to give you. So I appreciate you all being on the show. Thank you very much for telling what you're doing and us enlightening us again on your progress. And we hope to keep it up. And what we can do here, Dianne Andrews in Black and White, if I can be of any service, being a STEM person also, and notifying people of some things you're doing, I'm more than happy to help you out, Alisa. It's a great mission. This is why I do this, because I like shining a light on people who are trying to, it's my way to give back to society. Thank you very much, and we'll see you later, audience, next week on Dianne Andrews in Black and White.